BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody, today is Friday, and Anything Goes Friday. Welcome to the show. On these Anything Goes segments, we often cover a subject that is not related to the Zodiac Killer or the questions and comments that you guys leave in. That's mostly for Wednesday's AMA segment. But I've been involved with some new material regarding the Zodiac Killer mystery, and I just couldn't wait until next week to get this one out because I had been corresponding and discussing this with someone whom I will simply refer to as Sherry about her suspect, and we're going to call him Arthur Franks. That is not his real name, that's an alias that we have given him. But I would like to first tell the story that Sherry has shared with me about her Zodiac Killer suspect, and I would ask that everyone approach this with an open mind, and then later on in the episode, during the second half, we will look at the challenge questions and the skeptical alternatives, or examining the theory in contrast as opposed to the exploratory discussion that we'll do right now. So, Arthur Franks is a psychologist that Sherry ended up seeing in California, and through her own investigation, she determined that, or I guess you would say she believes that her suspect, Arthur Franks, is indeed the Zodiac Killer. But Sherry's story doesn't begin there. It starts when she is working at a food and beverage company. You're not going to give out the name of it, of course. And she uncovered something that she shouldn't have. The short story is that she saw something that was not for her eyes, and she ended up being terminated over it, and it was tied to money laundering. And I asked her, was this business a front for organized crime? And she said, no, it's about money laundering. Well, I mean, the only explanation could be is that it is a front for organized crime based on the level of funds that were involved. But Sherry was terminated, and her employer, the boss, the person who was the head of that company, wanted to make sure that she was silenced. They were terrified that she would file a wrongful termination lawsuit and expose this operation that had been taking place. So this employer wanted revenge. After Sherry had been terminated, somebody came up to her and stabbed her with a syringe, a needle, and injected her with something. After that, she lost her consciousness, and she says that perhaps the whatever was in the syringe altered her memory, so it was very vague, very hazy. In short, she had been drugged, and let alone she wasn't even completely sure coming out of that trance-like state, waking up and not completely knowing what's going on. Then this happened again. Somebody stabbed her with a syringe and injected her. At this point, she knew what was happening, and she went to the authorities. She told them all of the events that had taken place, the termination, and then she's been stabbed more than once with a syringe, and someone is trying to drug her. I mean, as far as I understand about these injections, this is just coming out of the blue, like someone is doing this in a very, very unexpected manner. But then the authorities said, hey, you're telling an enormous story. We got to find out if you have any credibility at all. You need to go visit a psychologist, and then that person can determine if you're mentally sane or vouch for your mental credibility, and then we will investigate, because maybe you even have certain skeptical responses already in your mind about how Sherry would have experienced these events. So Sherry found this psychologist, as I said, we're calling him Arthur Franks, and she started seeing him. And throughout her investigation, she determined that he was the Zodiac killer. This started with something that sounds like a rather benign statement, but Arthur Franks introduced himself as an 87-year-old man, but still practicing psychology. And Sherry had her doubts about that, and going through his company's website, social media, she was able to determine that he was not 87 years old, but instead 78 years old. So she was able to learn that he was lying about his age. Now, why would somebody do that? Perhaps it would be to alter certain events that they had done in the past or make chronology and the timelines not match up. But then she began to notice that Arthur Franks was doing something very similar to what had happened to her with those injections that I said earlier. He was using a type of chemically induced hypnosis with his patients for part of the therapy. And he had this expectation that that Sherry would not be able to remember the entirety of the events when she was under the influence of these drugs. So then she was able to tell that something just didn't seem normal. This therapeutic procedure that Arthur Franks was doing to her just did not seem like something that a psychologist should be doing. So she stopped seeing him in person and then switched over to seeing him over the phone. And she began to investigate more about what could be going on, putting things into Google, learning possibly about bizarre practices or men who have done things to women in the past, and she came across the Zodiac killer. And then she just suddenly recognized Arthur Franks' similarity to the composite sketch of the Zodiac, and then began to find more information, even a solution to one of the cards that reveals the name Frank. So she became very, very suspicious that he was the Zodiac killer, and she decided to confront him about that. And at this time, Dr. Franks was still under the impression that Sherry would not be able to remember everything. So what happened is he confessed to murder, and she asked him more and more questions, and she says he broke down, face into his palms, and began sobbing about the events that had taken place, and he confessed to 37 murders. Those are the exact lines that I believe she has heard with her own ears, that he confessed to 37 murders, and then she has also heard that he said a line about the girls in Santa Rosa. And this is a connection to the Zodiac Killer mystery. The Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings that took place after the canonical Zodiac crimes in the early 1970s. Perhaps the most famous victim of the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings is a girl named Kim Wendy Allen, who was found naked in a creek bed after she had been raped and murdered. Kim Wendy Allen is the person who was seen carrying what is known as the soy barrel. It is a barrel of soy sauce that had two Chinese characters on it. And in the 1974 Exorcist letter, there were some odd markings on the paper that people weren't quite sure what to make of. It could have been an attempt to recreate the Japanese language, because the Exorcist letter was talking about the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta The Mikado, or I think it was Robert Graysmith who said you can reshape the letters or the markings on the Exorcist letter, and it will spell out Lee, L-E-I-G-H, for Arthur Lee Allen. A lot of people have their own hypotheses about what that indicates and what that means, those marks on the Exorcist letter. But the point is that's connected to the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings as well, allegedly. I personally think that the characters are very different, but I'll say all of that in the next segment. So these are the two confessions that Sherry claims she has heard with her own ears, that Arthur Franks has confessed to 37 murders, that he was a serial killer at a previous time, and now he has also confessed to the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings. Sherry is convinced that there has been DNA that has been left behind after the murder of Kim Wendy Allen, and that will be the key to solving this entire mystery. Sherry also has put forward her hypothesis that she believes that the motivation for the Zodiac crimes that took place in 1968 and 69 were someone who felt that he was a rejected yet still entitled lover. He wanted to be with women, so he started targeting heterosexual couples who were out at lovers' lanes or just in secluded areas, because there is an enormous debate about, was a place like Lake Herman Road, where the first crimes took place, actually a lovers' lane? Was Blue Rock Springs a genuine lovers' lane? Places where he encountered a man and a woman together in a car late at night, targeting a couple, for lack of a better term. And he felt that because he was not able to have these types of romantic encounters, he wanted revenge on society, revenge on the world. And this all is possibly tied into the Lord High Executioner from the Mikado, because that Gilbert and Sullivan operetta is all about how flirting is a crime and it is punishable, and it could even be punishable by death. So that is a very big link there. Now, Sherry's interactions with her psychologist, Arthur Franks, are also, well, there's an additional element going on, and she claims that her former employer was using his enormous wealth to pay people to silence them, and one of them ended up being Arthur Franks. Because for a while I didn't quite understand one element in her story, like what is this connection between the employer and her psychologist. And she claims that 2 days after she made the appointment to see the psychologist, this employer of hers paid him off, allegedly. I mean, she doesn't have any papers to support that, of course. I mean, how would you put like an illegal transaction into writing? Even I can admit to that, there wouldn't be an enormous paper trail. But he has been paid to be an active participant in what is going on. That is why there is this similarity between the injections that we mentioned at the beginning and this type of chemically induced therapy that the psychologist would be performing on her. So this is one that does need to have an open mind with, but her suspect, Arthur Franks, comes from a very educated background. He has a PhD in psychology as well as a Juris Doctor. He is also someone who would have fit the age rather closely. I mean, if he were 78 years old in 2020, around just after the 50th anniversaries of the Zodiac canonical crimes, he would have been in his late 20s at the time, which fits a lot of the bill. And also, Sherry uncovered some startling information that there was info that had been posted online that showed that Arthur Franks was not living in the state of California during the canonical Zodiac crimes, as well as the times of the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings that took place in the early 1970s. Then, through the work of a private investigator, she claims she uncovered that Arthur Franks was indeed in California for the entirety of the late 1960s and early 70s. So it was simply some false info that he had posted online. You have somebody lying about his age, someone misrepresenting himself online about where he lived in the late 1960s and early 70s. And also, if you write out Arthur Franks's legal name, and that will have 18 letters in it. And here's something that is rather thought-provoking. The final line of the 408 cipher has a mash of letters, like in lots of E's and B's and O's and R's, and that has 18 letters. There are 18 letters in that line of uncoded text at the end of the 408 cipher. If you are to write out, "I am the Zodiac Killer," that will also have 18 letters. So is that just what the solution to the 408 final line is? "I am the Zodiac Killer," or perhaps it's matching up to somebody's name. I mean, this one is highly open to debate because many people believe that the Zodiac Killer would have created something a little bit more intricate than just writing a line of symbols that has the same number of symbols as does the letters in his name. So I definitely tend to think about that is rather too simple of what the Zodiac Killer would have wanted to do. But there it is all the same, and definitely "I am the Zodiac Killer" also seems to fit in there. This is a very large story, and there are multiple elements, and if I have to tell you anything trying to evaluate information, I am much more curious about these events that have taken place, about this money laundering scandal, and could her former employer be an actual front for organized crime, and would he be doing things to silence her? Because that is where I was really trying to ask these types of questions. Well, this is not typical behavior of someone who just doesn't want a wrongful termination lawsuit that's going to expose someone else's business. Like, I mean, there are many other ways to keep a person quiet as opposed to going about this injecting somebody against their will. And she said simply it's to discredit her, to make her appear like she is crazy, and perhaps even to drive her into suicide, so then no one will ever take her story seriously about how she witnessed this information that she shouldn't have seen, and then about how she witnessed things that could be very damning and expose this money laundering operation. But I said we would provide a set of skeptical challenges to this one, and please stay tuned right after this message, and we will do that, and let's compare and contrast some other possibilities all in the story. Okay. Bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum bum. At this time, I would like to talk about some of the ways in which you can help Black Box Online Radio. This channel relies on your support, and the best way you can help out is just by listening to some more content. If you like what you hear, you can hit that like button, subscribe, and share with your friends on social media. But I should also say that Black Box Online Radio now has a Teespring page, and there will be some links in the description box. Please feel free to check out some of the merchandise that is available. Almost all sizes and colors are listed. So, you can also help out by going over to the Zodiac Killer channel and watching the documentary series Obsession into Darkness, parts 1, 2, and 3. I was one of the contributors for that, and you can see some other great Zodiac content on the Zodiac Killer channel. And yes, there will be a part 4 of Obsession into Darkness at some point in the future. And for now, let's get back to the show. Right now, I would like to go through some of the Zodiac illustrations and designs that Sherry has shared with me about her theory in the Zodiac case. And the first one that we're going to look at is something that was mailed in on the Halloween card, and it's most famously been attributed to Red Rider. If you even Google Zodiac Killer Red Rider symbol, something will come up about that. But then you have one letter that seems to be very clearly resembling the letter F, and then you can see that one that has more or less the point on it that could be the letter A, Arthur Franks, and then this is used to conclude the Halloween card, Arthur Franks, Zodiac Killer. A lot of people, though, have their own solutions to the symbols, and the first time that I ever did an episode talking about a solution to this particular symbol, it was an episode on the French school teacher Yves Parson, who claimed that it was actually a combination of 5 different Celtic letters, H, O, D, E, and L, meaning George Hodel. So I just wanted to share that. I mean, that's just off on a tangent to this episode. But I also would like to read off the C13 cipher and the letter that is included with that, because this could pertain to Sherry's theory as well. It says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. By the way, have you cracked the last cipher I have sent you? My name is blank." And then there's AEN, a Zodiac sign, the 8 with a circle around it, K8, M8, Aries, NAM. I learned from Lyndon Lafferty that is supposed to be the symbol of Aries. I'm mildly serious as to how much money you have on my head now. I hope you don't think that I was the one who wiped out that blue meanie with a bomb at the cop station. Even though I talked about killing school children with one, it just wouldn't do to move on someone else's territory. But there is more glory in killing a cop than a SID, or kid, CID, because a cop can shoot back. I have killed 10 people to date. It would have been a lot more, except that my bus bomb was a dud. I was swamped out by the rain we had a while back. This one could have a couple different connections. There is this idea out there that the Z13 cipher is connected to the Halloween card for a very simple reason, that you see these 13 symbols. One of them is just that, one theory is that there are 13 symbols to represent the 13 letters of connect the dots, and that if you connect the dots on the Halloween card, it is going to reveal a particular message. So I have to lean more toward the material that was put forward by Skating Crow Productions, which stated that the Halloween card perhaps was heavily inspired by T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, But I would then like to go on to the next letter that was included here that says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I just want to tell you this state is in trouble. I will go to the government life. Don't forget me. I will kill more people than you cops can count, so look for more blood. You better print." And this is one that she believes was also created by her suspect, Arthur Franks. And then there is the celebrity Cipher card that says, "Do you know me? My name is Frank," and there's a KO, like meaning that this is connected to her suspect, Arthur Franks. So this is just some of the material that I wanted to share from Sherry, and always, if anyone would like to provide a different solution to the Z13 or to the Red Rider symbol, please put that in the comment section down below. As we explore Sherry's theory, there is one real red flag that stands out to me, and that is this connection to the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings. While I believe that Sherry is not trying to deceive me, I have to immediately respond to any Zodiac killer theory that insists that the suspect also committed the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, because all of the differences. I personally do not believe that the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings were committed by the same person. When we just mentioned the murder of Kim Wendy Allen, she was found naked, raped, and sexually assaulted. She was also found without her clothes on. And with the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings, the bodies were moved to different locations. The Zodiac killer did not move the bodies of the victims, with perhaps the exception of moving Paul Stein's body around after he murdered the taxi driver. But definitely not dragging the bodies to different locations or carrying them. Some people believe that the Domingos Edwards murders that took place in 1963 were the Zodiac killer's own, but I am also skeptical of that. I'm not saying it's impossible, I just believe that it's unconfirmed at the time. So I'm quite skeptical of the Zodiac killer having anything to do with the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings because of all of these different hallmarks, all of these different activities that the Zodiac just simply did not do. If it were one of them or two of them, you might be able to get away with something. But the Zodiac also did not target hitchhikers, to the best of our knowledge, in the canonical crimes. Think about everything we just said about showing up at lovers' lanes or where there's a couple in a car, a man and a woman together, but then going after women who are in vulnerable positions and committing rape or any type of sexual assault. The Zodiac killer had very clear opportunities to sexually assault the female victims, but that did not take place. So I think that that is something else that stands out to me as well. But I would like to keep going with Sherry's material, and I would like to read out a message that she has written about her suspect, Arthur Franks. Arthur Franks confessed to me about the murders back in July of 2020. During the confession, I cornered him with undeniable evidence that he is the Zodiac. After much back and forth over a separate unwanted visit, I asked Arthur how many. He said 37. I said the women in Santa Rosa, and he said that was me. All the hitchhikers, I asked him. He said yes and nodded his head. We were both hysterical and crying. I said, "Are there more?" And he said yes. San Francisco, I asked him, and he said yes. In March of 2021, Sherry read about the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders in details that Arthur Franks had not asked her to. He said it would upset her further. She was told as long as there were not children involved, she would not read the details, but she read about the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders and felt upset and foolish for not reading about them earlier when Arthur Franks confessed to the murders. They were very young in their preteen and teenage years. Arthur Franks beat them up, removed their clothing, hog-tied them, barbarically raped them, and brutally killed and discarded their bodies. When it comes to the Zodiac killer, I just have to reinforce that point. Where is anything about barbaric rape in the Zodiac crimes? It's just not quite present. But Sherry does want to insist that there is DNA that has been left behind after the murder of Kim Wendy Allen, and this would also be something very valuable that could be used to solve crimes. So, Sherry's first message to me is as follows. Arthur Franks is a brilliant therapist and attorney, overachiever focused on trauma therapy and criminal activity. which is why I started digging into his true identity. Arthur Franks is 100% the Zodiac Killer. He recently changed his extensive 56-page CV to about 36 pages, showing that he was not in Northern and Southern California from 1967 to 1974. A private investigator from Santa Rosa traced Arthur Franks's electric bills back to 1968 or so and found that he was living in Palos Verdes, California. Arthur Franks has a BA in psychology, and he has traveled as a professor of psychology, speaking to various universities just out of grad school. This was around 1966, and it accounts for his travels from Northern and Southern California and beyond, as well as having an affiliation with young lovers, peoples, and victims. I learned a lot about Arthur Franks from a podcast that he did online, talking as a trauma therapist, and jumping ahead so I don't reveal anything about someone else's identity. In 2001, part of a podcast was uploaded that mentioned some material in regards to the life of Arthur Franks, and he professionally changed his title to Discussing Serial Killers, concerning the death of his surrogate father, who he originally stated in the podcast was killed by serial killer MK Ultra. In January 2021, I gave a sworn taped interview accounting Arthur Franks' crimes against me to the Santa Rosa police detective Jay Page, stating that I gathered information about the life of Arthur Franks from that podcast that he was on, and during the sworn interview I pointed out that deleted serial killer affiliation concerning the death of his surrogate father prior to him deleting that portion of the podcast that had been posted on the internet. He is also an active California attorney, and all active California attorneys should be fingerprinted. Per the Board of Psychology, Arthur Franks' prints are also electronically through the live scan with the Department of Justice. And I said recently on the AMA that I had done on this channel Wednesday that I did make an attempt to contact him because Sherry did provide me with his phone number, and he did not respond. But I would really expect that people might not want to have to give a comment about this. I would just like to include one note that Sherry has written out here when she says, I do not expect you to endorse my person of interest. I think you're open to gathering information while I divulge here from there on. He is 100% the guy. He is freaking out. We have had many conversations, hysterical and otherwise, about his capture. I have encouraged himself to turn himself in to prevent further trauma to his family when they find out. So it really is quite difficult to accept anyone's confession if there is no media to support it. Otherwise, it simply turns into hearsay, what's telling us what someone else has told them, and that is definitely not something that you could bring into a court of law, especially if you openly admitting that there is some type of drug-induced hypnosis going on, or any altered state of mind, and I don't think that requires too much explanation. But I would like to keep reading with a message from Sherry, who says that she has been on a mission. She has contacted other shows as well, such as the one that is hosted by Jensen and Holes, that refers to Billy Jensen and Paul Holes from the Golden State Killer mystery. Paul's Holes is because he was an expert and he worked on the Golden State Killer case. He worked with America's Most Wanted. It is truly unbelievable how someone can become so sadistic to be heard as a suspect in a case, or the Santa Rosa police would just sit on Zodiac information stating that he did not murder in our jurisdiction, therefore there is nothing we can do. I did not hear from the cold case detectives concerning the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, by the way. Now, I think this brings up a point that is perhaps good to talk about now. When people are trying to contact the cold case units in California in regards to the Zodiac Killer, or as you also heard there, the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings, as I understand it, they have more contemporary cases that they are focusing on, and they are trying to devote their energy and attention to solving these cases, and they really are not going to be responding to all of the requests or all of the things that people are encouraging them to look at. Hey, I have a new suspect, I have a tip line, a person of interest that I want to bring forward. I think that that is just simply an ineffective way to get anybody's point across, like requests for DNA and so on. Some people have written into the email saying that, hey, Ned, can you try and contact the forensics in California, because I've been trying to get my suspect's DNA taken for 5 years, and it appears that they're just not putting their energy in that type of place, even though someone may indeed one day have the suspect in their sights. But I want to digress from that. But one thing that has been provided to me by Sherry is a solution to the Celebrity Cipher card that was written Celebrity Cipher, Vallejo Times Herald, and sent to Vallejo, California. And it simply there's a possible decryption to this. I think that's the best way to introduce it. That's, do you know me? My name is Frank K.O. So it seems that there is a set of evidence that is present before us, but there's a final note here that says, at some point you have to ask yourself these questions. The Zodiac and I have been going at it for almost a year now, and I've covered a lot of ground. I had a question about this that I can tie into it, because during the AMA, I read off Sherry's first email that she had written to me, and someone asked me a question in the comment section. It was actually Classic Chevy Cat Black, who said, has she made an attempt to contact Tom Voight? And I have since learned, yes, I even confirmed with Tom Voight that he knew who I was talking about, but they did not seem to reach any type of understanding. I think we'll just leave it at that. But I began to notice that there was a certain sense of esoteric Zodiac language in Sherry's emails. She referred to Tom Voight as someone who wants to keep the case unsolved, because then his website would no longer be relevant, his persons of interest page would no longer be relevant if the case were solved. And that is something that you can even find here in the comment section on Black Box Online Radio. People write that in from time to time, and I'm sure it's on other forums, that exact set of words. So the first point is that Tom Voight is not in control of law enforcement, and he is not the person who has the ability to issue any type of arrest warrant. He is not a person who can keep a case unsolved. If you want to, well, I mean, I think that's just it. I mean, the amateur detective community would not be able to have a greater sense of power than the professional detective community. And I think that's something that we need to be very clear about. And some people find that perhaps some of the more famous Zodiac researchers are dismissive of lesser-known suspects and lesser-known theories. But that's why we're trying to give this one an honest stance on the subject. However, I have brought up one rebuttal that I don't think the same person committed the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings as did the Zodiac killer murders. And another point is that to reiterate, is that the hearsay confessions are really not going to be very productive. As well as another thing that I notice about Arthur Franks is that he doesn't seem to have a propensity for mathematics for the creation of the cipher. In my own observation, and this might not even be a good observation on my part, but I predict that the Zodiac killer would have been older than his late 20s in 1968 and 69. There's something about the construction of the ciphers and the angles, the map code, putting the radian on Mount Diablo, that all suggests to me that we're dealing with someone older than the late 20s and perhaps closer to a suspect in the mid-30s and older. I say this because it appears that the understanding of mathematics is something that is a little bit more mature. It's a more mature choice for somebody to include in their criminal enterprise. Now, that is by no means a 100% statement of certainty that I know exactly how old the Zodiac killer was, or that a 28 or 29-year-old person would not do that. That's just like a gut feeling. I need to be very clear about that. But I also reached out to Arthur Franks to have him comment on this, and I would have taken his comments very, very seriously. But he chose not to respond as of yet, and you can imagine that many people do not respond to those things, but I simply wish they would, even just can give a one-sentence answer. And I know some people are going to interpret them in wild directions, but the majority of people would just say, they put a lot of weight into a response when someone says, no, I'm not the Zodiac killer, and here's why. No, I was not affiliated with that crime, and here's why. So there are points that need to be that we need to focus in on about this story, and I'm sure right now many of you are developing somewhat of a suspicion around all of the events that had taken place, like the termination, the um, money laundering, these odd people that are giving Sherry these injections, and I didn't want to be dismissive of the story because I wanted to approach this one with a fair take on the subject, and I didn't want to immediately think that something like that is too outrageous that it could actually have happened, and that then later on this psychologist ends up working for this organized crime syndicate, or that the very wealthy employer begins to pay him to continue this type of drugging to Sherry, mostly to discredit her in case and she ever went public or ever came forward. People would simply think that she is someone who is not telling the truth. So I wanted to listen and I wanted to evaluate this, but I think that someone who has read up on the Zodiac Killer mystery a lot could have composed a very similar narrative to what Sherry has established. Someone who has gone through many of the pieces of info that are available to the general public could just as easily have composed this, and as I said, adding in some things that other forum users are saying, that other people in the comment section on this channel are saying. And that's why it really is great when you guys do leave comments. If you have anything to say at all about Sherry's theory and the Zodiac Killer mystery, please drop your ideas in the comment section below. If you want to be challenging, and if you want to say that you don't agree with anything that has happened, or you think that it is inappropriate, or that it is something that should not have been shared, or you think that it is just outlandish, please put that in the comment section below. I want everyone to feel like they have the freedom to share their ideas. And as I said before, the only comments that ever have been deleted by me, or the only people who have ever been put in that very small block category, are the ones who use any type of abusive language or threatening or any type of derogatory language towards someone else or their family members. Then yes, that's not welcome here. But when it comes to the exploration of ideas, that is welcome. And it is a hard story to accept because, as a total outsider, you can see that there are elements in the story that are perhaps a little bit more difficult for the general public to even fathom that they're actually happening, because you have these very odd sets of behavior. It's not typical behavior after someone is terminated from a job, secret or no secret, to be injected with some type of chemical that is going to affect their memory. I mean, crazier things have happened, but people definitely do get suspicious of stories like that because they think that, well, what is this person doing? Are they putting on a show? What is this person doing? Are they just trying to say something that's a little bit different? And also, it's very important to note that people do make up stories from time to time. As I said, I don't notice any of the telltale signs of lying and deception from Sherry. So, I mean, I think I'll just leave it at that. I do not feel that she is trying to pull a fast one on me or something to that effect. I think it's something quite different, to be honest. But if anybody has anything that they would like to say about this theory and the Zodiac Killer mystery and the suspect Arthur Franks, please put that in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you, and you can always hit that like button and subscribe. Anybody can write the show, BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com, or you can write the show on Instagram at BlackBoxNet88, and then you can follow the show on Facebook. There will be links in the description box, as well as to the Teespring page. Okay, that's all for me now. I will see you on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.